Resident Evil is, for the most part, very much a story-driven series. It has sequels, prequels, interquels, retellings in the form of video games, films, books, manga, and so much more that add up to a very delicately weaved tapestry. Chances are if there's a question left hanging from something, then another piece of media will tighten up any screws to smooth things over. But that's not always the case. I'm Sai from First Aid Spray, and this is 5 loose plot threads in Resident Evil. Before we begin, this video does contain spoilers for several games in the series, including 0, 5, Revelations, Revelations 2, and both versions of Resident Evil 3, and more. You have been warned. Now let's get to it. Raymond and Jessica. Resident Evil Revelations was a lot. It was just a lot. Man, 2012 was a hell of a year for complex storytelling in Resident Evil. Revelations had a new virus and its connections to a terrorist group and an anti-bioterrorism committee. It had a futuristic city and the destruction of said futuristic city. It had the SS Zenobia and its sister ship and its other sister ship. At times it was hard to follow, and it was hard to know whose side certain characters were on. I mean, just look at Raymond Vester. He screams mole throughout a certain stretch of the campaign, until he doesn't, but then he does again. After the credits roll on the game, Revelations gets one last twist in, revealing that Vester and his associate and Chris's in-game partner, Jessica Sharrowat, were both working for Tricell the entire time, and that they had acquired a sample of the game's highly deadly T-Abyss virus. But have we seen either of these characters again since? Nope. And have we seen the T-Abyss virus again since? Also nope. Tricell elected not to use it since it was so dangerous, and as we know from the plot events of Resident Evil 5, which came out before Revelations, the company was due to go under in about a year's time, so it remains to be seen what exactly happened to these characters and this sample. Natalia and Alex. The first Revelations game set a bit of a precedent of MCU-styled post-credit shocks. Revelations 2 didn't exactly reveal that Natalia was joining the Avengers, more that Alex Wesker was joining the Natalia, that Alex Wesker was inside Natalia? Resident Evil Revelations 2 had its fair share of surprises in its plot, such as finally capitalising on the Alex Wesker detail that had been dropped quietly into Resident Evil 5's Lost in Nightmares DLC. And then it swerved us again by having her shoot herself in the head on screen halfway through the game. As the story unfolds, it's revealed that Alex's driving goal is to transfer her mind from her sick, ailing body into the brain of a capable host, and unfortunately for her, poor Natalia Corda is an ideal candidate. It's never quite told explicitly how successful Alex's plan is until you finish the game and are treated to a scene that very much implied that it had all gone horribly right. So now it's surely just a matter of time until the Alex Wesker storyline picks back up once again. In the canon, Revelations 2 takes place in 2011, meaning by the time of RE7 at least, Natalia would be 16 years old. More than enough time to get some wheels of evil machination to begin to turn. Resident Evil 3's post-credits scene. Our third and final post-credits entry on this list is a weird one because it retroactively tries to go back in time and add a hint of something in. We've spoken a bit before about how the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3 could have been good for really cementing what the canon of those events are, but as fun as they are to play, they absolutely did the opposite. Resident Evil 3's 2020 remake ends with a short but sweet scene set some amount of time after the destruction of Raccoon City of a lady holding onto what appears to be a sample of the T-virus vaccine. Easy assumption is Jill Valentine, although personally I'd argue when was the last time you've seen her wearing green? Sounds more like the colour choice of another STARS member to me. What exactly this means and how it plays into the already existing story, we have no idea. Is it setting up something for Village? Or a future title thereafter? Is it setting something up for another remake? Or when Capcom finally puts a stop to the trend, is it going to be something that never ever resolves? On the subject of RE3, the live selection element of the original game meant that we never had a very clear picture of the ending of the game, specifically with what happens to everyone's favourite money-hungry slimeball Nikolai. Would the remake finally clarify his fate? Not really. He gets abandoned on a roof, sure, but we never see him die, and there's a conveniently placed helicopter just a few feet away, so we can continue to ask whether or not we'll see Nikolai again, which brings us nicely to... where is insert character here? Many months back we polled our Twitter followers on what their biggest unanswered questions were in the Resident Evil canon, and a good 80% of them can be summed up as, whatever happened to this person? Resident Evil has so many one-off characters that never return who are beloved by legions of fans, and also it has, like, arc, I guess. At the end of Resident Evil 0, Billy Cohen walks away into the Arklay Forest the morning of the mansion incident. Does he get out of the city? Does he get eaten in the woods by Cerberus? Maybe, just maybe, he's Nemesis. He's not, by the way, that's not a thing. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis closes as Carlos Oliveira escapes the doomed city on a helicopter with Jill Valentine and he disappears in a puff of smoke. Speaking of the Master of Unlocking, Resident Evil 5 is the final canonical appearance of Jill Valentine, one of the most integral characters of the series, and she hasn't had any main story appearances in 12 years. Also, Sheva was one of the two playable characters in this game, and she's been MIA ever since. Maybe they decided to start a new life together in the Kajuju Autonomous Zone. The Revelations games not only introduced us to characters we've already mentioned, like Natalia, Raymond and Jessica, but also the likes of Parker Luciani, Clive O'Brien, and Moira Burton. Where are those? Nobody knows! The entire cast of Dead Aim, never heard from again. And out of Resident Evil Outbreak's gigantic crew, only Alicia Ashcroft ever gets a mere name drop afterwards in a throwaway file on RE7. And whatever happened to Lucia? Actually, who cares? We're not saying every single character needs to turn up all of the time, but a few neat bows would be nice to find out what exactly happened to all of these lovely, lovely faces. Resident Evil 6 had an entire squadron of playable characters, half of which were new for the series, yet it's been close to a decade since we last heard from Sherry Birkin, Jake Mueller, Helena Harper, and even mainstays like Ada Wong. Speaking of which, who is Ada Wong? Perhaps the biggest mystery of the series is who exactly is Ada Wong, first appearing in Resident Evil 2 and manipulating Boy Scout police officer Leon S. Kennedy to get her hands on the G-Virus for her employer, intercepting, acquiring materials and breaking Mr. Scott's heart once again before she vanishes seems to be a running theme. We know shockingly little about Ada, where she comes from, and what drives her. Trained in the Chinese criminal underworld, employed by the likes of Derek C. Simmons and the family, as well as Albert Wesker and the rival company, Ada is defined by her total focus on achieving her missions, and as she's delicately implied before, it's all in pursuit of her own goals. What exactly these are, we have no idea. Money? Unlikely. Power? Possible. Notoriety? Maybe, since Ada Wong isn't even her birth name, we don't even know that. Resident Evil 6 got us the closest to seeing her as the person she truly is, as her campaign was less of a series of assigned tasks and more of her trying to protect her good name, so that she could receive yet another mysterious phone call from yet another mysterious employer.
A job, huh? Sure. My schedule just cleared.
And that's 5 loose plot threads in the Resident Evil series. Can you think of any more? Do you have any headcanons for any of them? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with First Aid Spray. Thanks for watching, and have a good week.